Hello everyone, welcome back to the ObaNutrition channel. Today in this video, I am sharing about kidney disease. Now, kidney disease has become a common thing in our population right now. Either one person has a relative or a parent who is ailing from renal disease. It might be already known or not yet known. That means they have not yet seen a doctor who has been able to pinpoint the problem that the kidneys have been affected. So this video will be helpful for anyone who is in this category and also others who might want to prevent themselves from getting to such a point, because management of kidney disease is very quite expensive. A single dialysis session in a public hospital is about 7,000. You can imagine how high it can get if you were to get such a service from a private hospital, especially the high-end private hospitals. So it's good to prevent yourself at an earlier stage from getting kidney disease. So much of the time, kidney disease will occur because they are now compensating what the heart has to be doing. So it might start with a heart problem such as hypertension or even diabetes itself causing damage to the kidneys. But majority of the times it's usually a cardiac issue that now the kidneys have come in step in order to compensate for that problem. So if this problem is not treated early, you find the kidneys also failing. So most of the time you'll find kidney disease being diagnosed in three categories. We have the acute kidney injury. In the acute phase, it means there's not much damage. There's the chronic kidney disease, and there's the end stage renal disease. So for the acute kidney injury, there has not been so much damage, or even there has been a kidney disease, but it has been less than 3 months. However, in the chronic kidney disease, it means that this acute problem has now progressed and we are having it lasting over 3 months. In the end-stage renal disease, I will also highlight what it means through the various biomarkers that are used to test for it. In the end-stage renal disease, it means you actually require a dialysis or even a kidney transplant in order for you to be able to support fluid regulation in the body. So other common types of ways you can be diagnosed with a kidney problem, you are told you have either glycosuria. In glycosuria, it means that you are actually excreting glucose. I mean the glucose you find in food. You're excreting glucose through your urine. In protein, you also have something else called proteinuria. In proteinuria, it actually means you are excreting protein molecules through your kidneys, which is not supposed to be happening. So kidney disease is very progressive and will always occur according to those stages that I highlighted before. Acute phase first, then you have the chronic, and then the end stage phase coming later. But there are various things that will always enhance this progression. The first thing is always dehydration. Another thing is pre-diabetes as well as having diabetes. So it's not a must for you to be diagnosed with diabetes so that you can progress to such a situation, but also pre-diabetes. This means that you do not have very normal blood sugar levels. Your blood sugar levels are between, they are at the range between them not being normal and you not being actually having diabetes. So if you're doing your fasting blood sugar, you'll not be told that these are normal blood sugar levels. And even when they're done, you'll be told that this is not yet diabetic. And this range is usually between 5.6 to 7. So between 5.6 to 7 for the fasting blood sugar, it will always be the pre-diabetes stage. Then we also have hypertension. Hypertension is actually one of the biggest culprits beside diabetes in causing renal disease, as well as overconsumption of calcium supplements. So calcium supplements are also not friendly. So those are mostly the risk factors that will come in. But I would like to discuss the biomarkers that are used to test for you having a kidney problem. So after discussing that, I'm sure you can be having a rough idea of what I will be talking about as the causes. So the first biomarker will be used in diagnosing a kidney problem is something we call the glomerular filtration rate, or otherwise known as the EGFR. Now, the EGFR is actually a way of indicating how well are your kidneys able to filter out the blood. We can put it as a range of a percentage because the units involved there are a bit quite not very friendly to those who may not be let me say, uh, not very vast with the scientific terms. So I'll use it in the form of percentages. So in the scientific term is actually milliliters per minute per 1.73 meters squared. But using it in the layman's terms as percentages, I will say the normal glomerular filtration rate, or the rate at which your kidneys should be filtering out your blood, is between 90% to 120%. So if it's below 90%, it means that there is a deficiency in terms of filtering your blood. This is one biomarker that is normally used to indicate that. The other one that goes hand in hand with it is something we call creatinine. Creatinine is a type of waste produced in the body, and there's amount that is normally remains in blood, but there's that amount that has to be excreted in urine. So creatinine, when it's very much elevated, especially if it's above 500 or even above 300, you'll find that the doctor will tell you that you have to do aggressive rehydration to your kidneys in order to remove it as a waste, because it mostly comes in when there's so much dehydration that it builds up in the body. So we have the aspect of the creatinine being above 300 or 500. The normal should actually be between 46 to 107. This is whether you are a man or a woman. So between 46 and 107, those are the normal creatinine levels. Once it surpasses 107, you will find a history of dehydration being indicated, or something like nephron damage coming into play. So those are the two principal biomarkers used to indicate how your kidneys are functioning. We can also have something else added, such as urea. Urea is actually another form of waste that comes from the nitrogenous waste, that is protein. It can be used, but the mostly that is normally relied by the medics is either the EGFR or the creatinine. With them, you can be able to sense whether you are supposed to go for a dialysis, or will just give you some fluids in order to be able to rehydrate the kidneys and your body can function better. Most of the time, you'll find that if there's so much buildup of fluid, because one symptom of kidney disease is building up of fluid. If there's so much buildup of fluid, you can find that it is contraindicated if there's also something like heart failure happening. So with the heart failure, buildup of fluid, we might end up doing a dialysis instead of just giving you fluids, because we don't want also to overburden the heart with so much fluid. Then something else I want to mention are the typical symptoms of kidney disease. This is what you'll find that any person ailing from a kidney disease, whether it's at the mild stage or at the aggressive stage, where you're at the end stage, you can be having. The first one is fluid retention. And fluid retention is happening because the kidneys are doing the work of the heart most of the time. So you'll find that the heart had some problem, so it decided to share the cost of that problem with the kidneys. And them coming into play together, it means you can find fluid buildup in the body. So fluid retention either on the lower limbs, where we are having now pitting edema specifically. So fluid retention on the lower limbs, on the upper limbs, that is your hands, and other times on your face. So you are retaining a lot of water on your face. Sometimes it will show up as puffy eyes, puffy cheeks, and all that. The other one that will happen is shortness of breath. And shortness of breath can be best explained this way. There's buildup of fluid, and it's also happening around your chest area. If it's happening around your chest area, it means your lungs cannot expand very well. So that space of expansion at the rib cage, if there's so much fluid buildup there, you cannot do very heavy activities, because for heavy activities you need more oxygen supply. So the capacity for your lungs to expand more in order to inhale more oxygen or absorb more oxygen is much more reduced. So shortness of breath will also happen. You also have something else coming into play, fatigue and weakness. You're having shortness of breath, so obviously fatigue, being very fatigued, doing a small thing such as just going to the washroom, you're already feeling weak, your legs do not have strength, such kind of a thing. The other thing that can come into play is having itchiness. This is when it has really progressed, so you are retaining a lot of waste in the body, specifically urea. So when you're retaining urea in the body, you'll feel much itchy on your skin, wanting to scratch yourself every now and then. And this one will always happen when there is dehydration happening at a very aggressive point, so you are so much dehydrated. The other one is also having a white scaly skin. White scaly skin, people might think that, let me say in quotes in Swahili, umeparara. But it's not that you do not applying oils, because your skin is now taking the actual color of urine, that colorless color, or being like scales. You know how fish looks like, those scales. It's coming to such a point, and it doesn't look actually really good. The other that will come into play when you reach this point is also having brain encephalopathy. So in brain encephalopathy, it's kind of a disorder of the brain, though it's not really a disorder that is progressed that much. It's where you are really confused, you're not really aware of your environment, so much you're in your own world, kind of. Loss of mental acuity, you don't have mental sharpness, you're just confused. Let me say, it's principally described as total confusion. Also, uremic gastritis will come into play. So in uremic gastritis, it means that urea that's being backed in your body, it's now even affecting your stomach environment. And it has been so much backed up that even the ability for you to digest food in the stomach, it becomes problematic. The stomach becomes inflamed, and you end up with a kind of a peptic ulcers that has been created, or a gastritis that has been created due to that problem. Also having nausea. Nausea will always come as an early stage warning. Someone tells you, whenever I want to eat food, I just feel like I do not have the time for it, or I don't have even the sense of it. They are always nauseated, they want to vomit. And also it's coupled with also having a very serious loss of appetite. So this is happening because so much waste has been backed up, and the body is trying to use other techniques to prevent more accumulation of it. So lower food intake comes in, because this waste that is the kidneys have to filter will also come from food. So it's preventing more accumulation of it, so you lose your appetite. If the waste is too much that it's even causing a digestive problem, you start having nausea. You're now becoming more intolerant to food, because the digestive system is not finding it suitable to be able to deal with food at that moment. Then vomiting, it wants to remove all that food. So these are the things that will always come into play. Then something else is also you can also experience is frequent urination, and this one will also happen if you're also having pre-diabetes or diabetes. Another way relating to urination is very low urine output. This will happen in kidney stones, or even feeling a lot of pain when going for a short call. Then also not being able to control the urge. It can also be a sign, but it's not very much. It's very serious, but what can be really serious with it is having very low urine output. That means you are backing a lot of waste, and this is low urine output even if you are taking water. Not that you're not taking water, you're actually taking water, but your urine output is very much low. So maybe you have taken 2 liters of water, but when you analyze the number of visits you've had to the washroom, it's just once, which is not really sensible. Taking 2 liters of water and then only going for a short call once in the day doesn't make sense. So having such kind of a thing happening, or even very frequent urination, you are not even also able to control the urges. So those are the kind of symptoms that you're going to have whenever there's a kidney disease in play. So which are the causes of the kidney disease? I believe by right now everyone is aware of what I will be talking about as the causes. The first cause is always low water intake. Low water intake is a big cause. And the reason why low water intake is a big cause is because your kidneys use water to filter blood. They do not use any other element. Your kidneys will not use maybe juice to filter blood, or they will not use soda to filter blood. They'll actually use that clear fluid that you do not want to always take for it to be able to filter your blood. So low water intake, it specifically affects those who are diabetics, because with diabetics they are having an aspect of them removing so much water that there is so much less remaining in the body. That causes dehydration. Another group of people that it happens to mostly is those who are retired and are geriatric. So if you are retired, it means you are no longer active, you're no longer much in the sun. You have been probably told to do a low salt diet. So these things are now causing you to have very reduced thirst signals. So much of the time you're in the house, you are doing a low salt diet. That means thirst signals are going so much lower. That means that the amount of water the body requires you're not able to sense it well, so you drink very much less water. So if you're drinking less much water, it means that those kidneys do not have enough fluid in order to filter the blood. Over time, it causes nephron damage. The filters of the kidneys, called nephrons, they start getting damaged, and consequently you'll be told you have acute kidney disease or acute kidney injury, or other times chronic kidney disease. And the treatment at this stage will always be rehydrating your body. You are given some fluid, either normal saline or something like Ringer's lactate, as an treatment mechanism, depending on how your electrolytes also look like. If you're having very low potassium levels, your doctor will probably prefer to do a Ringer's lactate as a fluid enhancement mechanism. If your potassium is good and not that bad, they can just opt for normal saline. Then you have the other aspect being sugar. Now, sugar is actually you cannot run away from it. And with sugar, it just don't mean you are diabetic. Pre-diabetes, you do not have normal blood sugar levels. So it's good for you to be doing these routine sugar checkups, especially in the morning before you have taken anything. Just go to a hospital. It's not that expensive to get a blood sugar test. Other hospitals will do it for you for free of charge, especially public hospitals. While in the private hospitals, they will not charge you a huge fee for that. So you can just be doing it routinely every 3 months, just to be able to find out, are you being able to manage your blood sugars very well as a preventive mechanism. So if your sugars are not well, if you're told you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, it means you start lowering your sugar consumption. The other thing that comes in play with sugar is that if there's no excretion of sugar through the kidneys, they are going to be like sandpaper, scrubbing those nephrons. If they're scrubbing those nephrons, it means that they will not last longer. Over time, they'll start not being able to function 100% of them. So you might be having only that 30% of your nephrons actually filtering blood. Blood volume of about 5 liters being filtered by only 30% of the nephrons, because the others have been damaged by sugar. So consequently, you are now diagnosed and told you have to do this or do that. Then also with sugar, there is the aspect of causing hypertension. That means that the kidneys are receiving blood at very high blood pressure. So imagine filtering blood at very high speed. It means that these nephrons also understand they do not have shock absorbers to absorb all that kind of pressure. So if you're having very elevated pressures because of too much sugar intake, it's going to damage those nephrons because they do not have the shock absorbers to deal with it. So sugar is a no completely, especially if you have already been told you have a kidney issue. The other one is excessive protein intake. This mostly affects bodybuilders. So bodybuilders, in the spirit of trying to get big-bodied or trying to build more muscle, they consume a lot of protein. Now, most of them, you'll find that they are at the age of above 30 years. Below 30 years, you can consume a lot of protein and still get away with it because you're in the rapid growth phase. Remember, much of the waste that the kidney deals with, it comes from protein. The urea is made from protein, ammonia. For those who have done something related to chemistry, when you break down protein, you get ammonia, which eventually forms urea. So much of the waste is coming from protein. Now, remember, protein is very important for your body, but excessive means you'll always also have excessive waste that will go to the kidneys. With excessive waste, if you are below 30 years, your kidneys can be able to deal with it because you are pretty young, you are still energetic, you are still moving, you do not have probably an office work that doesn't really make you idle or make you not having a lot of movement, because with office work it means your muscles are not getting involved, so the amount of protein you need is also lower. So in such a situation, it means that below 30 years you're able to deal with it well. You're probably playing football, all that kind of things. But above 30 years, it's another play coming in. Above 30 years, you're most likely in an office job. You're most likely also not very much active. You're not in the gym. Then if you are consuming very high amount of protein, your kidneys are not young as they were. You're also not in the rapid growth phase, because remember, growth shelters a lot of this damage, because if you're growing rapidly, it means your protein demand is way higher. So the amount of waste you are producing will not be so much problematic to the kidneys. That's why a child can take 2 grams per kg per day of protein and there will be no much problem. But for an adult above 30 years, probably they are 36, taking above 1 gram per kg per day of net protein, it becomes problematic because they're not in the growth phase. One is aging, another one is growing. So if you're above 30 years, just ensure your protein intake is between 0.8 to 1 gram per kg per day. That's an optimal range, and it doesn't matter whether you are building muscles or not. It will be very protective for you. And this is the reason why most bodybuilders end up hospitalized with renal issues or kidney problems. The other aspect I want to talk about, which is the fourth or the second last, is consumption of transfats. Transfats, these are fats that will damage the blood vessels. They actually reduce the lumen of the blood vessels. They also produce the bad type of cholesterol. So remember, cholesterol is actually very essential for the body to some extent, but there are the other types of cholesterol, which we'll call them the VLDL, the very low density lipoproteins. So with the very low density lipoproteins, they transport a type of cholesterol that causes inflammation and damages the blood vessels of the body. So with these trans fats, you will get this type of cholesterol being formed. And these trans fats include things like blue band, sorry to say if you're a fan of it, margarine, as well as the solid vegetable fats. You all know them, such as they are common brands. I don't want to mention them by name, but these solid vegetable fats will also get much involved with it. The other one is the deep fried foods. If you're a fan of chips, a fan of bhajia, KFC, deep fried chicken, deep fried fish, samosas, mandazis, KDF, all of these deep fried things, they're all causing buildup of these fat molecules, which are now transported as very low density through the very low density lipoprotein channels. Now with the VLDL, if there's that aspect happening, there's going to be a reduced lumen of the blood vessels and inflammation of the blood vessels. This consequently causes elevated blood pressures. With the elevated blood pressures, they will cause finally damage to the nephrons. So the last point is about the calcium supplements, especially for those who are having things like osteoarthritis or things related to bone problems, osteoarthritis, osteopenia, or even they are told that because they are wasting too much, they will need some calcium supplementation. These free calcium supplements do not have the regulation mechanism. Every time you're taking calcium in nature, you'll find there's something that is regulating its uptake in the body, either something like vitamin D or magnesium. But these calcium supplements do not have them. So they are going to consensually cause calcification of the blood vessels. Calcification of the blood vessels will consensually cause high blood pressure, especially the diastolic blood pressure. Also, when there's the calcification happening, it can also happen to urine itself. So the urea itself, you find that you're having calcified urea. With calcified urea, you're going to form kidney stones. So it's going to be very painful passing urine. So when it comes to calcium supplements, just keep them out. Just keep yourself away from them. Consume calcium in nature. Calcium in nature has a way to regulate its absorption in the body. For example, if you look at sardines have calcium, but they also have vitamin D. So as much as you're taking the calcium in them, there's the vitamin D that regulates how much you will absorb in the body, as compared to taking something that doesn't have a regulatory mechanism. So I want to thank everyone for who has reached this point and listened to this point. So it's good for you now to take the action from what you have learned as the causes of renal disease, and you might also advise someone concerning it. I also welcome you to subscribe to the ObaNutrition channel, where there will be videos every now and then being posted. So it's good also to subscribe and be able to get updates in time. So thank you for watching this video and see you next time.